Hello and welcome to today's podcast. So excited to have you here. Can't wait to get into the nitty gritty of everything that we're going to have going on today, talking about the live event audiovisual world. Whether you're touring, whether you're corporate, whether you're industrial, whether you're Broadway and theater, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. We want to learn as much as we possibly can to become better professionals and better people as we go forward in the audiovisual world. This podcast is solely based on one principle: value for value. I want to give value to you. We at GigReady want to give as much back to all of the professionals that we've worked with and those that we haven't worldwide as much as we can, because I believe that as we learn more about how other people work, process, and make progress in their lives and in their careers, you can do the same thing. Tons of new information, tons of great stuff that we can put out. So if you've gotten value from this, I ask that you give some value back. Maybe that's in feedback, sending us an email to GigReady@gigrent.com and saying, hey, this is what I've learned. This is something I want to learn. This is what I really enjoyed about the podcast, or even, hey, this is what I think you could do better. Secondly, you can give a review. Jump onto iTunes, jump onto Stitcher, jump onto Spotify, and just tell us what you thought. Let us know how great we are or how much we suck, to be quite frank. But I want you to know that we want to get value back from you. We don't take corporate interests. We don't take sponsorship money. We are here to help us learn. And if you want to be a part of the learning process of this program, if you want to be able to, whether it's support us, help us, provide opportunity, provide us with other ideas or people that might do well on this podcast, we are ready to listen. So I hope you enjoy today, because this is the GigReady podcast. Hey everybody, Jordan Goodfellow here. We are with GigReady, and we have a great afternoon for you planned. I have the fabulous Brett Benin, technical director, with us today, and we are going to be talking about what is probably the most prominent and well-known word for everybody in the live events industry for the last 2 months, which is virtual or webcast. We've been talking about these for a while. Brett is one of the foremost experts and does a ton of work on those. Brett, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Love what you do. You and I have had a number of conversations about how to do this, how we're going to do virtual events, the best way to execute on it. So let's start from the top. As we're looking at a virtual event, a remote event, a hybrid event, whatever we want to term it, as a video director, web stream producer, technical director that does that, what is your definition of that particular position as it falls within the new medium that we're in?
Right. So the way I would usually define it is my main duty is to ensure that the end viewer is getting an accurate portrayal of the event that is happening. These current times, it's kind of weird because we don't have a live audience necessarily that we're playing against. So it has been modified a little bit in these times to where I'm trying to make sure that they're receiving enough of the story to really paint the picture of what's going on. And really now it's turned more to supporting the presenter to make sure that we're able to get that message that they're trying to convey to their audience in an accurate form. Yeah,
makes sense. So that's interesting. Actually, something I never thought much about in regards to thinking about the presenter on the other end. They actually have, there's no feedback. They're not getting that audience interaction. So they're talking like computer screen to computer screen, and they're looking at their deck
with no feedback. And that's been the biggest challenge with a lot of these presenters is, they're used to, throwing a one-liner out there, getting a little bit of a laugh, or, making some sort of a statement and which would normally elicit a response from a live audience, and they're not getting that. So we've actually been playing with some different ideas of how we can actually provide that feedback, using like a group Zoom call so that we can provide them some amount of feedback. But yeah, it's really tricky because even at that, you then have a latency that you need to deal with. Where if they deliver a joke, does that response that we're now going to deliver back to the presenter come too late, and how does that work out? So that's been my current challenge, is trying to figure out that solution. But yeah, it's really as my director, as a video director, and in these virtual events, it's really making sure that the two sides are getting what they need, so that we can make sure that they do it. A lot of times, I've seen so many webcasts and virtual events where it's either a camera shot of the presenter or it's a slide. So then you end up losing a lot of it. A lot of our dialogue when we're talking and presenting is in people's face, like what expression are they giving? There's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes on.
Yeah.
So it's always my push to try not to lose that nonverbal communication. So we will a lot of times do a PIP where we always keep the presenter on screen and then bring their slide up so that it's 3/4 of the screen. So you still read everything, but you don't lose that presenter's view, and keep that human interface that we so much need in presentations.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. I mean, I wouldn't want to look at a slide of, data for 5 minutes as somebody's talking about it. It gets pretty boring. So when we're looking at a project, this is a new world for most people. I mean, we went from hardware, all this gear loaded into a ballroom or an arena or something.
Right.
And we manage that project in one way. When you're looking at a virtual project and you're saying, okay, here's what we need to manage, how do you do that from start to finish? Concept to execution. What's your process that you go through as you do that?
So my number one thing that and this even goes to before, but even more so now, is managing the expectations. So my start is always finding out what the expectations are of not just the end client, but all the other players in the process. Without knowing everybody's expectations, it's really hard to pull off a successful event. And then managing those expectations as we move along the process. It's always my goal, and I try to teach anyone who works with me is, under promise and over deliver. If you can do that, then you'll be successful.
Of course.
So a lot of times, in these virtual events, one of the things that we're running into a lot is having to educate the end clients of how it's going to work. So they'll say, I have 5 presenters that I want to have on screen at one time. So their assumption is, okay, well, we need 5 channels to bring those presenters in. And I have to educate them, saying, well, actually, we're probably going to need 10 channels, so that if we have your 5 people on screen, we have 5 more sitting in the wings. So when those 5 go away, these 5 come into focus.
Okay.
So it's a lot of, again, managing those expectations so they understand, and educating them so they understand the reasons why we're doing it. And we're not just, again, throwing more gear at them that they don't know why we need it.
So are you coming in then, someone comes to you and says, hey, Brett, we've got this sales meeting that we need to execute now. You set up their expectations, of course, reminding them this is not like being in person, as we talked about,
right.
You're not going to get that feedback. And then they say, all right, well, we're all ready to go. Are you helping them come up with, we know who we're going to deliver to. So we're delivering to a sales group. Then are you helping them create the content that they want? Are you outsourcing that to someone else to bring that? Because they have to have something to share at that point.
Right. So I do have some graphic designers that I work with, which are the same people that would have been doing the keynotes on an oral presentation. So a lot of times I'm setting them up with them so they can actually develop that content. And then I'm usually developing the package that's going to go into. So very rarely, like I was saying earlier, I never do just a full screen of the graphic. So it's always in a PIP, which means I now need a background that's going to complement whatever they're presenting or whatever the conference might be that we're doing.
Okay.
So that's
so
it is a whole team.
Yeah. So you bring in, for instance, graphic designer, you say, hey, I need a PIP that is, whatever, 100 pixels by whatever in the corner over here, and then you can bring that in, and then they've built that into the plan already. So having that, so it's not like we take a 16:9 graphic and just whoop, shrink it down, and then there's all this black.
Right.
We've got to think about that. Right. Yeah,
we're thinking about what's going around all the sides, so that like right now, like when we're doing Zoom calls these days, the Zoom call has, you know, an image and then some black space and then maybe a little pip up in the top. We try to make sure that we utilize that full 60:9 frame, so it's all branded and it's not, you're not falling out of the brand and looking generic. So we really try to push it to the next level. It's very similar to what you would see on any major news broadcast. If you're watching a panel discussion on CNN or Fox News, where they all have a fully branded tickers at the bottom. That's actually how we're producing a lot of these virtual events now.
Okay. Broadcast.
To that same level. Yeah.
Got it. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about, broadcast. What is that going to look like? I mean, I'm thinking going forward now, most events, I mean, they're going to have a broadcast component. It's not going to be, hey, throw the encoder down and pipe out whatever is on screen. You know, we're talking a video director that's dedicated to that live stream, to that, you know, switching that part of the project. I mean, does that mean a second set of slides that works for that? However, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, but it seems to me like there's more opportunity there, because people that might travel to an event, not everybody can either afford to get the time off, you know, any of that. So, you know, does this open up the opportunity for people to be able to actually give more people the content that they have as they're creating these, you know, doing these events? It's not just in person anymore. Yeah,
it's and especially with what's going to be going on with international travel over the next couple of years, I see it's going to become very commonplace that we have to have a webcast component to every event moving forward. And then a lot of times, and in the past, it has really been that it's when I would come in to do a webcast, they would usually say, well, here's our screen feed. They might give me one camera if I begged for it. And that was it. And I was trying to make a show out of that.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, I think it's going to become more of a focal point to where, you know, having a dedicated camera just for the webcast that's not being shared by the iMac screens, and having our own dedicated feeds will become an important component moving forward.
So
because we're telling a different story, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. You know, if you're in the room as an audience member, the story you're getting, you can actually see it developing around you. When you're on a virtual event, you don't have that context. So, like for example, doing a tight shot like we normally do on iMag, where it's, you know, the cowboy up sort of camera shot. For webcasts, we prefer to have a full body shot, so that, again, we can get a context of what's going on, where they are on stage, that you don't get when it's a tight shot like you would want for iMag.
Yeah, head to toe, something bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so that all comes into the planning stages then. When you're getting like a week out from an event, what are the things that you are, you know, tightening up graphics, preparing that sort of stuff that you've already been working on for however long, if they give you a whole week or more than a week to prepare? Let's put it that way. What else? What are you guys working on there? Is there equipment that you're focused on? Is there what else are you testing or looking at during that point in time?
So a lot of times that week prior is doing a lot of the back end work, where, you know, is the website that it's going to show on, is that ready? Is there any security issues that we need to worry about for that website? Then testing all the equipment. So we mainly use TriCasters as our main webcasting gear. It's basically the Ferrari of the webcasting equipment. Yeah. So a lot of times it's, you know, make sure those are updated to most recent builds. A lot of times we're doing test streams. A lot of these platforms, what a lot of people don't realize is Facebook is changing the way a webcast works on there, sometimes daily, sometimes hourly. So a lot of times we'll do test streams a day before, the day of, and even minutes before we start the real one, we'll do a test private one, and then literally just 10 minutes before we start, and then switch over to the real one as we're starting. So
Got it. Yeah.
It's such a moving target, so it takes a lot of preparation.
Bandwidth is huge. You mentioned that testing. I hadn't even considered the idea of them changing algorithms and code. And I mean, because they're always trying to optimize these systems, Zoom and Skype and Teams and everything else that goes within that. Have you had like a big, like, oh, well, we tested it yesterday and it was this way, and then today suddenly we turn it on and like it's all broken?
I've had that within an hour. So where we tested it an hour prior, everything worked, and then we go to hit live, and suddenly it says you've been logged out and you need to re-authenticate. And somehow or another in that hour, Facebook had pushed an update to their code, which logged everybody out. And then it actually broke it. So we actually ended up, instead of using the Facebook app that's built into the TriCasters, we very quickly had to revert to an RTMP direct stream where we pushed right to Facebook instead of going through their preferred way, which is a built-in plugin that they use on the TriCaster.
Interesting.
And that all happened within, well, like I said, within an hour. It worked an hour prior, then an hour later we hit go and it doesn't work all of a sudden. And what do you do? So now we're frantically trying to get it back up, and we did. Luckily, one thing that I push with all my clients is we never do the, okay, we're going live in 3, 2, 1, we're live. It's always, let's do a 5 or 10 minute pre-show to make sure everything's good and golden before we actually go live.
Totally. Okay. And then you go live and you do the show and everybody's happy. And theoretically, bandwidth is great and nobody has any complaints.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's actually a big point of confusion with a lot of the end clients is everyone seems to think that, I actually just had this with a big talent agency yesterday. They said, well, we might have, 1 million people watch this webcast, and I don't know if we have the bandwidth to support that. And people don't realize that you're not connecting directly to that site, that this is all going up to the cloud, and the cloud is handling the bandwidth. It has nothing to do with your 10 megabit connection at your office. Where we pushing up to, it really depends. Maybe we're pushing to Facebook, or we're pushing to YouTube, or Amazon Web Services, or Akamine, or any one of a number of CDNs to do that last mile, and they're supporting the load of the 1 million people. So.
Got it. Oh wow. Okay. Very cool. As we're building out these events, what are you doing to stay organized, to help keep all the information flow? You, clients, presenters, like what are you doing to help organize everybody that is working on a project?
So I live and breathe in Google Documents. So be it Google Sheets or the actual Google Docs, Google Drive. That's pretty much where I live. I've tried various versions of different software, project management software. My problem I always run into is I work with anywhere between a dozen to 20 different producers throughout the course of a year.
Yep.
And no two producers use the same anything. So, but I've yet to find anyone who doesn't have access to Google Apps.
Yeah.
So I've made some really complex budgeting and scheduling documents in Google Sheets so that they can hop on there and it makes a lot of sense. And that keeps everyone organized. The other main thing I do is I am a huge, huge fan of CYA emails. Everything I talk about with a client or presenters are backed up with an email to follow up to, hey, just to clarify, this is what we went over on that phone call. just so we're on the same page. And I save all those emails. Because more than one time I've had that conversation with a producer where we decided something, and then, a month goes by, we're on the event, and I do what we decided, and they're like, whoa, why are we doing this? And I can always refer back to the email and go, well, here on this email, this is what you said you wanted. And so
been there, done that. Totally understand.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you a typer or a voice to text person?
Oh, I type. I despise voice to text. Everyone always told me this, that I talk really fast and I tend to mumble here and there, which, hey, you'll probably hear during this at some point. But my diction is not the greatest, so I'm definitely type it in and get it all done. And spell check is my friend. So
yeah, 100%. So we go great. I mean, Google Docs is fantastic. I know that I use it for cash flow spreadsheets and all kinds of great stuff like that. Everything's managed. Everything is organized. Put that in quotes because we all know it's like herding cats most of the time.
Yeah.
So we get into, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but rehearsal days, show days, how are you managing clients through that? What are you doing, or a team, let's say, because I know you and I spoke before about how you have yourself, you have somebody else that's like, over here kind of wrangling clients. Talk to me a little bit about how you run that process, rehearsals and then show days for 180 people or whatever the number is.
Right. So I try to make sure that we have very defined positions and areas of responsibility. And again, going back to my original comment of managing expectations. So I kind of, I make sure that like my producers I deal with, I tell them very specifically, your job is to deal with the client, find out what their needs are, and then communicate that to me, and I will make sure it gets to the right person. My stage managers, I usually tell them, this is the next presenter, find out what they need, find out what their expectations are of this rehearsal, and let me know what those are. And then I'm going to make sure the rest of the team knows what those are. So that's, that's really how I do it, I guess, for lack of a better way.
Are you prepping? So what are you doing to before someone gets switched on to go live, you have your TriCaster, that's what's switching the show. Do you have multiple computers set up where you could go over to this, computer A, and, the next presenter who's on deck, you can talk to them physically before they end up getting online?
So it really depends upon the show and the budget and everything else. But in a perfect world, one of the ones that you and I worked on, for example, we had a pre-flight station where a presenter could go there. There was a graphic artist sitting there at the ready to go over their slides even seconds before they went live, before we then pushed them over to what was going to be the actual show computer.
Yeah.
So one of the bonuses of doing a lot of web-based events and events that leverage networks is all my shows are heavily networked. Every single computer is on a network, and we can move files between them as needed. So the show caller is going to have access to the most recent deck because it's in a shared folder. That pre-flight graphics person has access to those decks, and so on and so forth, so that everything is shared resources.
Got it. And so then you have, I think you mentioned to me once that you have somebody on an, again, budget, all of that stuff, but you have a person that's communicating with presenters. They call, that person calls in 10 minutes before their time slot, and you're looking at their bandwidth and you're checking, hey, all right, is your computer working properly? Can you see me? Can you hear me? All that.
So we do a pre-check like that, and that's with a technical person. We're calling them up, and traditionally we do that in another platform, or let me rephrase that. This is all brand new, so we're modifying this plan every day.
Yeah.
But now we're using a Google, or not Google, but a Skype group chat.
Okay.
Where we'll bring all of the presenters in there for about 30 minutes prior to them coming online. And so we will now have 4 or 5 presenters all in this one Skype chat where they can talk to each other. We're calling it the virtual green room. We found that really is helpful for these presenters because it gets them used to talking to their camera and interacting with it versus coming in cold right into the call. We have a producer that sits in that group chat, and as time goes along, whoever's managing the people who are on screen will say, "Hey, we now need Jordan to come into the broadcast." So we'll say, "Hey, Jordan, why don't you go ahead and leave this group chat and our production team is going to call you on the broadcast line." And then so you hang up and we call you. And again, it's using the same Skype, everything. So no settings have to change, and everything's been flushed out for the prior 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then we call you on the production side, and now you're into the show system.
Oh, very cool. All right. So it actually is separate. You're not, you're trying to keep those two
Correct.
siloed so that you don't eat up a bunch of bandwidth and other things that could potentially.
Yeah. And bandwidth requirements on Skype are pretty low. We were actually shocked. We're looking at our bandwidth usages on a big webcast we did for the Smithsonian where we had 180 presenters. And in the course of 2 days testing with all 180 presenters from around the world, it had only used up like less than a gigabit of bandwidth over the 2 days versus our webcast where we were pushing that out at a 10 megabit stream. We did a 1 hour test and we were at like 2.5 gigabytes in 1 hour versus 2 whole days of testing with Skype had barely touched anything. So,
okay.
The compression technology is really good. And, but yeah, we keep them as 2 separate bins just so that there is no mix ups. There is no, oops, I brought the wrong person over or audio didn't transfer over or something. So
awesome.
Yeah.
You have a show. What are 3 things that you need on every show? They can be tangible. They can be intangible. Doesn't matter. But like just 3 things. Coffee is one of my 3 personally.
Right.
But for you, what are the 3 things?
My number 1 is, again, getting back to the expectations, like just having clear expectations, because that's whenever that gets missed, that's where things go bad really fast.
Yeah.
And then following up on that is the communication, like having the communication with everybody. That is a pet peeve of mine. It drives it. I'm not one to dictate. I tell you what my expectations are, and I allow you to set your own parameters.
Yeah.
Which sometimes bites people in their butts because they overpromise and then they underdeliver.
I feel like you're referring to something there, Brett. I feel like you're referring to something.
No, I'm not.
Dude, it's okay, man. I will willingly and readily admit to my own failures. For those of you that don't know, Brett and I did a show earlier last year, and we had some massive challenges that frankly, I did not deliver on what I had said I would be able to deliver as fast as I expected to deliver on it. And by the end of it, it all worked itself out. Everything was on time. Show went off great. It looked amazing. But I learned some very valuable lessons on my end from that and delivering it. And like Brett said, he is great he'll give you exactly what he needs and what he knows he needs, and then he'll let you hang yourself if you choose to. So not on purpose. You understand what I'm saying, but
I try to. I've learned that if you play dictator, nothing ends up going well, and people just get upset at being barked at all day. Versus if you allow people to figure it out on their own and make their own rules, they have a much greater chance of success. So my third thing, which follows up on those other 2, is having a great team. I can honestly say I travel all over the world. I deal with hundreds, if not thousands, of stagehands all over the world. The bad ones I can probably count on one hand.
Yeah.
For the most part, everyone's great. Everyone wants to do a good job. I've yet to walk. I mean, I usually joke at it, but I usually will ask my crew, you know, hey, anyone, is this your last show that you're ever going to do? And, you know, because if anyone ever says yes, then I want that person off my show, because, you know, you do whatever you want on your last show. So, you know, knowing that everyone is planning on still being in this business tomorrow means they're all going to try their best, you know, and so allow them to do it. The tangible item, I would say my most tangible need on a show is reliable comm. I can't tell you how many times it's usually the thing that everyone doesn't care about. It's the last thing to be set up. The one thing when budgets get cut, that's the first thing that they think that they can cut is comm, or they don't want to pay for it with an in client. To me, if you don't have good communication with your crew, the show is doomed to fail.
Yep.
So that's probably my number one physical thing. And then, you know, red vines. If red vines are on the show, I'm good. So.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. I love that. Comm, man, I cannot tell you how many times I've had a producer come to me and say, oh, well, this last show that I did, the comm was terrible, but yet you're right. It's X amount of dollars. We could get, I'm like, no, you don't understand. Comm, like that is the show. You know, and back to what we mentioned earlier about, you know, expectations, letting people do their jobs. What happened when it happened last year, it was a great opportunity for me to help my people and help us learn some huge lessons and communicate with them on how to effectively communicate with your clients. And I can't be more, you know, more appreciative of the fact that, you know, we learned that lesson and it has helped us communicate better going forward and give more information and help them understand, you know, from our end that it's like, I have to be communicating with my clients. I have to be telling them what's going on, because a lot of times they might know what's going on, but they want you as a person to communicate with them, because this is a personal thing. I mean, we are person to person. It's not like me to a piece of gear. The gear can't talk to you. So,
well, and it's a lot of times too, like in my position, I can see what's going on. Like I understand when things aren't going right, but I'm not always 100% sure that my vendor fully understands that or grasps that.
Yeah.
I would much rather have a vendor, you know, come to me and say, hey, things aren't going right. Here's what we're doing to rectify it. Than to sit there and which I have all the time, where they come to me and they try to paint, you know, rose-colored glasses on me to make me think that everything's fine, when I can look at it and be like, no, dude, it's not fine. Honesty is like a key. And, you know, I have no problem. I get so many people. One of my fun games I do with union hands all the time is I'll get a projectionist, for example, who will come in and be called in as a projectionist, and I'll know that they don't know projection. And I'll say, hey, do you know how to do this this blend? You know, they all do the same thing. Oh yeah, I was called out here to do it. Of course I know how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, they very rarely do. And so I'll let them struggle for the first hour or so. And then, you know, usually go over there and say, hey, do you want me to give you a hand? The smart ones say yes. And then I can teach them. And I have no problem taking an hour of my time to teach somebody how to do it, because I know on the next show when I have them, they're going to do it. What drives me crazy is when that same person now tells me, oh, no, I have it. And, you know, you and I both know that blend should have only taken them in an hour. And they're an hour and they're still they're messing with the feed, and they've not even touched any of the warp settings. So,
yep.
So that's just, you know, the same sort of thing. And just, you know, communicate. And if you don't know something, heck, raise your hand and say, I don't know. Because the one thing I can tell you, everyone in this industry that I found, they love to tell you how much they know. So if you go up to somebody and say, I don't know how to do this, there's not a technician out there who's going to not take the opportunity to show you how smart they are.
Yep.
So, you know, go out there and say, I don't know what I'm doing, and I got thrown in this. Can you help me?
That's 100%. Some of the best guys that I know started out that way, and they, you know, I think that being in this industry takes a ton of humility in regards to like knowing what you know, but also knowing even more so what you don't, because
what you don't know,
what I don't know is honestly what hurts me in the end. And if I'm not willing to fess up, to say, hey, you know what, I tried to figure this out, And something I tell a lot of the people that have worked for me in the past is like, if you can't figure it out in 10 minutes, I'm sure you know somebody who does. Pick up the phone and make a call. If there's a piece of gear, I mean, how many times have you walked into a show where either A, the piece of gear you were told was going to be there wasn't there and you had something else, or you thought that a piece of gear did something and you were like, you could have swore up and down one side and down the other that I know last time I did this, and you just can't can't remember that sequence. And just, you pick up the phone, you make a phone call, somebody who does
just
it.
Own it.
Exactly.
Own it. Yeah.
And I've had guys struggle for hours, and I'm like, I'll walk up to them and be like, dude, what's going on? They're like, oh, I know I can figure this out. I'm like, if you had asked me an hour and a half ago, I could have solved your problem in 5 minutes, and we'd be going home now. So humility.
I do have a lot of fun though with one of our mutual clients that I usually just get called in as a show caller. So people with that organization don't necessarily know my full background. Mm-hmm. They don't know the experiences I have. So a lot of fun though, sometimes where, I have crew guys, trying to pull fast ones on me because they think I'm just a show caller. And, they're trying to tell me how LED walls work or how a webcast works. And a lot of times I sit back and smile and let them try. But yeah,
smile.
Always entertaining.
Very true. Man, we work with a lot of people. And I mean, of course, we want to keep those relationships strong and focused. But, there's always those times. There's the dips. There's companies that stop doing a meeting or they scale back their meetings and you lose some business or whatever. What are you doing these days to help find work for you and get out there, put yourself out there, sales, marketing, whatever you want to call it? What are you doing to be able to enable yourself to get more jobs, keep your schedule full?
So most of my business I get comes from referrals. And by most, I would say 99% of it. The way I work is I'm basically like an open book of information. I take everybody's phone calls when they call and they say, "Hey, how do I webcast this?" or "How would you design this?" I'm the first one that will go out of my way to help somebody figure out how to do something in their show with no expectations. Anyone's free to call me, and I literally have people from around the world. I'm very active on a lot of different forums and user groups for different equipment. I have people from all the world calling me and say, "Hey, I don't understand how this works. Can you explain it to me?" And a lot of those pay dividends then, and I kind of look at it as planting seeds. Mm-hmm. So then, down the road, that person is doing another show and maybe they need an extra hand. They're going to go, "Hey, that guy Brett, he helped me out when I needed it a few weeks ago." And I get that phone call. So that's really how I find most of my work is, again, even with my end clients, with CEOs and stuff, they'll finish an event and then their CEO friends say, "Man, that event looked great. Who did you use?" And then, again, they're referring them back over to me and to my team. And we come in and take care of that.
Yeah, top of mind. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah. And then the second part of that is if I go back to my earlier years, before I was as well known as I am now, is I walked right into production companies. When I first moved to Las Vegas, for example, I walked right into Encore and they said, "Hey, we don't have any jobs for you. We don't know who you are." And I introduced myself to all the account executives. And I told them all, I said, "Hey, I know AutoCAD really well. If you need any drawings for your shows, even if it's just for a proposal, let me know. I'll do them for free. I've got nothing else I'm doing." So for a long time, I did hundreds of drawings. And with only one string attached to it was, "Hey, if you actually get the job, just put me on the job in some position." And that was a trade-off. So I would do a drawing for XYZ conference. And then they would call me and go, "Hey, we won the bid. What position do you want?" And then I would literally just take my position.
Wow.
So a lot of times it was, back in my early days, I was a lighting designer. So I was designing a lot of the lighting. And then I got into video. And so then I put myself on the shows as the video director. So that's one thing I tell a lot of the newer technicians now is find something that's valuable during the bidding process of shows and offer that up. One of my guys, he talks with a lot of his clients, and he says, if you need somebody to look over the gear list before a show, I'll be happy to do it for free and tell you, hey, by the way, you're missing the extension cables we're going to need for these projectors, or a PD that you forgot that may not be big enough for whatever you're doing.
Yep.
And it's those little services that make a huge difference for these account executives bidding these jobs, so they're not forgetting, oh, shoot, I now need a $3,000 distro that I hadn't budgeted for.
Yeah.
And it takes 10 minutes out of his time. He then gets put on the show, and as this added bonus, he knows the gear's right.
Yep.
So, because how many times we've all walked on the shows, we walk down there and go, whoa, who picked out this gear? This is all the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
To accomplish what you want. So.
Yeah, that's great. Man, added value is the name of the game these days for sure.
Yeah.
I myself just answering the phone, answering emails. You're 100% right about that. Everything we can help people with in support is huge. So what do you like most about being in the webstream virtual world? I mean, maybe just being at home and being able to be in your garage, which is possible, but I mean, what do you like the most about this transition that we're in right now?
So for me, where we are right now in this industry, with everyone basically working from home, things have slowed down a lot. Like the pace of everything. On an average year prior to this, I would be traveling 260 days a year.
Wow.
Not at home. My wife at this point is wondering, when am I leaving next? She's actually enjoying the fact that I'm home as much as I am, because the honeydew lists get taken care of a little bit quicker than in the past.
Right. That's right.
So yeah, it's been different. Don't tell the police, but I am still traveling for some jobs here and there. I've consulted with some state governments on their emergency operations centers and had to fly out and fix their broadcast systems.
That sounds like essential travel to me, Brett. That's all I'm going to say.
It is technically essential travel. So
there you go.
It's been entertaining.
So what do you like the least about, kind of where we find ourselves at the moment?
I guess it's the uncertainty. It's like I said, I'm talking to lots of people who want to do virtual events and web events and consulting on a lot of them, but then how many of them are actually going to pull the trigger and go through with it?
Yeah.
So every day it's kind of looking at it. It's also trying to, these virtual events take a lot less crew. I mean, we're talking, we used to do shows, you and I would do shows together with 100 guys on it.
Yep.
And these virtual events are, 2, 3. I mean, I think the biggest one I've done so far, we had 10 people working on it. But that same show, when it was a real conference, would have had a crew of 100 working on it. So that's been my new thing, is trying to figure out how we can get more work for everybody else out there, given the lower requirements. So we're, that's been the tough part, is trying to figure out how to get the work for everybody.
Yeah, it's tough. I get it.
Me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're all in this together. It's tough when you don't have opportunities for everybody that you want to have opportunities for. I know the feeling completely. So people that want to transition into this world, into the webstream world, they've done it before. They've done, we did a Zoom call and we had some Zoom conferences and whatever else. But what can they do going forward to get better or be more prepared to jump into this world and do more events, do more virtual events, hybrid events, as we progress?
So the big thing that everyone needs to learn, and this is going to be just moving forward in live in any type of event moving forward, is networking. Everyone needs to learn what an IP address is, what subnet masks are, how do you transverse networks, how do you, what does bandwidth actually mean? Like everyone's like, oh, well, I've got 1 gigabit of a bandwidth, people need to really start learning about what that really means, that, and how that applies to doing these events. And that's really probably the main thing is just learning all the networking aspects,
understanding the
And
limitations.
then there's some protocols out there. NDI is a big one. Network device interface. It's where you can basically move all your audio, video, everything all over an internal LAN network. And then to follow on that, there's also SRT, which is secure, reliable transport, which is the same thing as NDI except over the public internet, so that you can move an entire show over the public internet, switch it from your home, and send it right back in real time for a live show.
Okay.
So.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. So as we're kind of getting to the end here, I know that one thing that I always end every discussion we have about this stuff is being able to be gig ready. A gig, whether it's at home, whether it's away, whether it's at the convention center, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. What are two things that our listeners can do to be more gig ready the next time they gig, whether it's next week, next month, next year? What can we do to be better the next time?
So much like how we started this conversation, with I think the very first question is understand expectations. That's the big one. No matter what your position is, your first job when you get on that gig, whether that's pre-show or you just walked into the ballroom that morning, is ask what do you expect by the end of this day, by the end of the show. What is the expectation from the person you are reporting to?
Yeah.
Once you find that out, is then figure out how you can exceed that expectation. If the goal is, hey, by the end of the day, we want to have all the equipment up and running, then your goal should be, I want all the equipment up and running, and I want to be not only show ready, but I want to have gone through a run through before the end of the day. So you want to take what that end expectation is and just go one step further. And if you make that your minimum goal, you've now exceeded the person you're reporting to's goals, and you made a much better impression that's going to serve you well into the future.
Very cool. Managing expectations, finding the expectations, exceeding expectations. I think expectations might be your favorite word.
It really is.
I agree. It's critical. Managing people, helping them understand what we want is incredibly important. If they don't know, they're just going to wander aimlessly. And that's actually one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately with my employees is, more management in regards to who's in the shop, how are they doing, like no unsupervised projects. Those expectations are always presented because people, as we know, will take up however much time you give them to do any given job. So if we set up the expectations, it needs to be done in 4 hours, even though it needs to be done in 5, they're going to get it done in 4 because that's just what happens. Right. It's the nature of the game. Yep. That's awesome. Well, as we both know, we're only as good as our last gig. So hopefully we see another one real soon. But Brett, thanks for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. Sure. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Love talking about webcasting. There's so much more to discuss that we could take hours on end to work through and so on. But thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time today. It was fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen today. I know that as a professional, each and every one of us want to be better tomorrow than we were today. That's why we've created the GigReady podcast. This is a place where professionals can come and look at what they're doing, look at how they're doing it, and get better every single day. We are solely value for value. We're not going to take corporate interests. We're not going to take sponsorship money. We want you to get better solely because that's what you want. So please give us some feedback. I want to get better. I want to create better podcasts. I want to create better events just like you do. So if you have some value you want to give back, ideas, thoughts, questions, even the ability to be a little critical at times, I would love to hear from you. thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe out there and stay gig ready.